So nobody's perfect. Nobody expects you to be perfect. There's gonna be mistakes being made. So let me give you a little bit of a heads up. Let me tell you about 5 mistakes that pretty much everybody has made in their Army career at some point in time. What's up, my friends? U.S. Army veteran Christopher Chaos, and today I want to tell you about some mistakes that are pretty common that most people make. Sure, you may be this perfect individual and you're gonna tell me about it in the comments or whatever, but no. These are pretty much some mistakes that usually someone makes. Maybe they make them often, maybe only once in their Army career and they learn from it from that point, but I just want to give you a heads up that these are mistakes that are probably gonna be made, most likely. Just prepare for it, get better, whatever the case might be. Now, if you're not familiar with my channel, that's the kind of content I like to create here. Army educational type of things, fun things about the Army, whatever the case is. If you're someone who wants to join the Army, someone that is already in the Army, someone that was in the Army, whatever the case is, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also click on that bell so you get notified as soon as new videos go live and become a part of that notification platoon. So let's dive into it, shall we? We're gonna start this off with the very first one, and that is being late. Now, you may be thinking, that's too easy. I'm not gonna be late. I'm pretty good already with the way things are now with being on time. Well, here's the thing. In the Army, there is no such thing as being on time. There is either you're early or you're late. So if you have to be somewhere, let's say at 9 o'clock in the morning, right? So you show up at, let's say 8:55, 9 o'clock, you're not on time, you're late. Because in the Army, you always have this thing as 10 minutes prior, sometimes 10 minutes prior to being 10 minutes prior, sometimes 10 minutes prior to being 10 minutes prior to being 10 minutes prior. It goes on and on like crazy sometimes. But the thing is that you always have to be early. If you're not early, then you're late. So there are times where just doing that simple of a thing, showing up on time, because there is no such thing as on time, you're showing up and you're late. But there is also times where you are flat out late. You were supposed to be somewhere at 9 o'clock, and due to whatever things that are going on or whatever's happening, you didn't show up until 9:10, 9:15, 9:30, whatever the case was. Those can happen because maybe you overslept. Maybe you did not know where you were going. So you thought you knew where you're going and it turned out to be the wrong place. So now you gotta try to correct it, and now you're late because you showed up at the wrong place. Maybe even someone told you the wrong location. There is a lot of excuses, a lot of different ways that potentially you could potentially be late, and it happens to everybody. It may happen maybe only a couple times, maybe only once, maybe quite often. But the main thing is you learn from it. You learn that, okay, if it's a place I've never been to, maybe I need to scout it out better to make sure I know where I'm going, so I know that I'm gonna go to the right place. Maybe show up really early. That way, if I am at the wrong place, I have enough time to correct that and still get to the right place in a proper amount of time. So a lot of things you learn from, and that's really the main thing with mistakes, is making sure that you learn from them. There's been, sure, some times where I've been a little bit late here and there. I think the biggest one, the scariest one, was we had a road march one time. It was during the winter time, and it was supposed to be like at 6 o'clock in the morning. I overslept or slept through my alarm. I don't remember what the deal was, but I got a phone call from my platoon sergeant, and we had a really snowy day, and it was a little after 6, and they were like, I think they maybe just thought I was still en route, and they're like, hey, don't worry about coming in. They closed the post. We'll just do the road march another day. See you tomorrow. So I got super lucky. I don't know if the individual knew that I was late or thought that I was still en route, but they didn't make a big deal out of it, so I called it good. But yeah, my phone went off and I was like, holy crap, I'm late. But thankfully, the snow kind of saved me. The second thing probably only, or should only really apply to men, but that is forgetting to shave, or maybe just not shaving good enough. Probably if you're young, joining the military, you may not have to shave at all for a while. You probably just have to fake it sometimes. Sometimes you're just going through the motions with a razor, because sometimes, drill sergeants be on you about peach fuzz sometimes too. It just kind of depends. But at some point in your Army career, it's gonna get to the point where you're gonna need to shave. So that sometimes comes down to maybe inexperience. Maybe you're just not very experienced with shaving, so you miss some spots, or you're in a rush, you miss some spots and you didn't shave well enough, or sometimes you just completely forgot. Maybe you are someone that, your facial hair grows in pretty slowly, so sometimes you can get away with a day or two, and you went a little too long than you thought you could get away with, and now it's kind of showing and your leadership busts you out for it. Other times, like maybe you were just in the field, which, yeah, usually in the field, you still have to shave. And sometimes, you just get so busy and someone busts you out for it. Hey, you need to shave, Sometimes you just are in a hurry because you were running late for physical fitness, didn't get a chance to shave. So boom, there you go. And you end up getting busted out for not shaving at PT formation. One of the things I used to always do was in my car, I always kept either an electric razor or even a disposable razor. So that way, if I was in one of those moments where I was like, oh crap, I forgot to shave, or I missed a spot and I noticed it, I usually had like in the glove box, like that electric shaver, or even that, just a disposable one. That way if the battery died, the electric one, I at least had the disposable one and just dry shaved and kind of cover myself in that way. So I definitely recommend that for any of you guys out there. Have some kind of like backup razor that you either carry with you, you have it in your vehicle, somewhere is handy to get to where if you're in that situation, hopefully you can save yourself in that way. Number 3, kind of along the same lines, probably only really applies to men as well, and that is not getting a haircut. Some leadership will be pretty tough on you about that, So I've had some leadership where, pretty much every Monday when you were showing up to work in the morning, they were checking to see if you had a nice fresh haircut. And if you didn't, they'd probably get on you a little bit about it. They have certain standards as far as what your hair is supposed to look like, how it's supposed to be and everything like that. And a lot of leadership might be really strict with that and be like, no, you gotta, make sure that, it's a nice fresh haircut, maybe especially like along the neckline and all that kind of stuff like that. So I often would try to get a haircut every Sunday before, showing up to work on Monday. Occasionally I'd miss that and, maybe there was some times where I get busted out for that, or maybe it wasn't too bad and I kind of get away for a few more days before I needed to get a haircut. But that's a pretty common one sometimes, especially when you're a younger soldier, that you'll probably, have some situations like that where someone's busting you out for the neck hairs being too long on the back of your neck or whatever the case was. I actually got to a certain point in my Army career where I got tired of doing haircuts every Sunday, so I just got a pair of clippers. I started buzzing my head every Sunday, and I just rolled with that for pretty much like the last, I'd say good 3 years of being in the Army. Now, before we dive into some of these other ones, if you have some questions about this topic or anything in the Army, make sure you leave some comments down below in the comment section. But also, we gotta feed that YouTube algorithm so that this video gets reached to other individuals to feed that algorithm and everything like that. So in the comment section down below, if you don't have a question, I wanna hear a cheesy joke. You got a cheesy joke you got off a popsicle stick, a dad joke, something really cheesy, kind of a joke type of thing, I wanna hear them. So leave those down in the comment section. Number 4, something related to a topic I recently covered in a video, and that is dropping your weapon. I've seen people in the comments saying, how the hell do you drop your weapon when it's got a sling on it? Usually that's not what happens. It's not usually like someone's carrying it and just falls out of their hands. Usually you drop your weapon because you were leaning it up against the wall, you had it leaned up against your rucksack, whatever, and somehow it slipped and fell over kind of a thing. It slid down, it wasn't properly propped up in the right way, and it slides and falls on the ground. I would say there's a good chance that at least once in your Army career, it's gonna happen to a certain point. Maybe you don't get caught, because it happened when nobody was around, or maybe you do get caught and you do some push-ups kind of a thing, right? It's not gonna be a thing usually where you're carrying it and you drop it. It's usually like leaning up against something and it, does a little small fall or whatever the case was. But it does happen. It's a pretty common thing that soldiers at some point in time will drop their weapon. Hopefully you're not someone that's clumsy to where you drop your weapon multiple times. I think in my entire Army career, it maybe happened once, twice, maybe in the 10 years of being in the Army. I don't remember it happening very often. So hopefully you're in that same boat where maybe it happens once or twice or whatever that you can remember, and you kind of learn from it. And you kind of start being a little bit more cautious with how your weapon is propped up against a bag or how it's leaning up against that wall or whatever the case was. But that is a common thing, so just be ready for it. Now, the 5th and last one that I'll mention as far as some pretty common mistakes that people will make. I mean, there is more than 5 things of things you might make as mistakes, but these are some pretty common ones. But like I said, that 5th and last one that I have is forgetting something. Because maybe right now I'm forgetting a mistake that's pretty common. Probably not. I'm just trying not to drag this out for too long, so I'm only covering 5. But something you might forget might be, your dog tags. Dog tags is a pretty common one. People have to wear your dog tag sometimes in an inspectable item, maybe at physical fitness or at first formation. They want to do a dog tag check and see who's got their dog tags, and you forgot to put them on. You left them hanging up or put them on a dresser or whatever the case was, and you forgot to put them on that morning. Some people just leave their dog tags on all the time to, hopefully not have to worry about that. Some people don't like to do that. So it just kind of depends on how you kind of do things. There's other things you could possibly forget. Another pretty common one is like a pen and notebook paper, or a pen for that matter. Having a pen and paper is a pretty common thing that a soldier needs to do, because you might be somewhere where someone's talking, there might be a class going on, whatever, and they're like, hey, you need to write this down. And if you don't have something to write with, something to write on, then you're gonna get busted out for that. And I know what you're thinking. Maybe for some of you, you're thinking, well, I have a smartphone. I can just take notes on my smartphone. Sure, that may work in some scenarios, but for the most part, leadership doesn't know if you're taking notes or if you're texting your buddies or if you're updating your Facebook status or whatever the case is. So that's not a good kind of thing to just fall back on to be like, oh, I'll just always take notes on my phone. No, you still need to have the old school way of a pen and a paper to make sure that you're utilizing it that way to take some notes so that way people don't think you're just playing on your phone. But there can be multiple things you forget. It might be something for the field. You forget to bring something in the field. You forget to bring something in formation. You forget to bring a piece of equipment. There's a ton of things. There's at some point in time in your career, you're gonna forget something. That's a pretty common thing. Someone's gonna be like, hey, where's this at? Where's that at? And you forgot it back in your room, back in your apartment, whatever the case was. It's a pretty common thing. So there are ways you can kind of, minimize that by just doing different things. Maybe creating like a checklist. Whether you are a forgetful person or not a forgetful person, I mean, maybe creating that checklist so that you have like a checklist at the front door of your apartment, your barracks room, whatever, to say, hey, do you have your dog tags? Do you have your ID card? Do you have this inspectable item? Because sometimes there's just like a little card or something from your unit that you have to put in your pocket to carry with you at all times because it's an inspectable item. And having that checklist before you leave that room to be like, do I have this, that? Cool, and then you move on, and it kind of maybe minimizes the chances if you're forgetting stuff, but still no 100% chance. There's probably gonna be something, might be something as simple as dog tags, a pen, or whatever, but that's a pretty common mistake. Even for me, I'm not claiming I'm perfect. There's mistakes that I have made. I have forgotten like my dog tags, a pen, I've been late, maybe only a few times, usually it's pretty minor. I think that that story I told about was probably the biggest one, but little mistakes here and there of forgetting things, not doing something right, whatever. Mistakes are made. It's more about how you learn from it and kind of minimize them throughout your Army career to hopefully help you out to be more successful throughout your Army career. So there are mistakes that sometimes even young soldiers make, especially when they first come in the Army. And if you want to learn about some of those mistakes that young soldiers make, I got a video right here that talks all about that I did a while back. I've also got my latest video upload if you want to check it out right here. Check out the links down in the description. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, join the Discord channel, all that fun stuff. I'm Christopher Chaos, and I'll see you next time. See ya.